So let me show you what we've just been talking about. Except the mouse isn't working. How can the mouse not be working? Okay, we're back. Okay, so we have the application running. It's the same one that you've been seeing. It has the album art, the titles. It's a long list, you can tell from the scroll bar. If I select on this area, I will get the item selected event. I'm not doing anything here, so there's nothing here for us to see. When I select this area, I will get the element ID. I will have music playback in progress. I can stop. I think this is something that you might want to use if you are saying downloading some item in your list, showing progress. You can do this for multiple items at the same time. Okay, so that's enough of that. Okay, so if you can go back to the presentation. Okay, so we've now made a slidable list. It's a custom list, and we've handled the caching and the event handling. So the next topic is adding something for this search kind of UI. In this example, we have the overlay keypad version. So we have basically two types of keypads. If I go to this slide first, we have the overlay keypad and the full screen keypad. The basic difference is that in the overlay keypad, you can see some of the content. So in some use cases, such as a search or active search, it makes sense to be able to show some of the search results. So overlay keypad would be convenient to use here. But sometimes it might be easier to just use full screen keypad, because in that case, you don't have to worry about updating this area of the screen. Also, for a full screen keypad, all full screen keypads handle landscape portrait orientation automatically. So you don't have to worry about that. With overlay keypad, it also works in landscape. But when you turn this screen to the landscape orientation, the client area is bound to shrink. So you have to resize the client area. Potentially, you have to resize the list because the width of the screen has changed. So there's some more maintenance that you have to do if you want to support the landscape orientation for overlay keypad. So for our use case, we've decided to use the overlay keypad. Now, to use an overlay keypad, we have to understand the scroll panel. The scroll panel is a control that you use. You can add items to it. And scroll panel, it has a virtual area. So only a part of it shows on screen. And you can continue adding items to the scroll panel. So when the item is scrolled, then you would see the items that you've added to the bottom part of the screen. So that's the typical use case of a scroll panel. But scroll panel is a lot more useful when used with the overlay keypad. So what you do is you add a scroll panel to the client area. Then you add an edit field into the scroll panel. And what happens is when you define that this edit field is going to be of the overlay keypad type, there's no more programming required to bring up this keypad. So when the user taps on this area, the overlay keypad scrolls up from the bottom of the scroll panel and takes up the bottom half of the screen. So you have to remember that you want to make sure that the scroll panel fits the full client area. If the scroll panel went down to, say, about this point here, then the overlay keypad would start coming up from this point. So you would have less of a client area. Okay. So let's look at how we go about making this. So we have the scroll panel as the background. We have the edit field added. We have a list. This list is, in this example, created dynamically depending on the search results. And we have the keypad. Now, because the keypad is covering the bottom half of the screen, what happens is the scroll panel is still there. The scroll panel has not changed in its size, but the client area, the visible client area has. So you might want to resize this list to fit the visible area. Then you will get the proper scroll bar in relation to the amount of screen that's visible. If you did not resize the list, and if the list was still filling the entire screen, then you would only see half of the scroll bar. So, because everything that's going on, even behind the keypad, is still going on. So in our example, we use the edit field, which is different from edit area. And the edit field supports only one line of text, and edit area supports multiple lines. So we've created the scroll panel, added the keypad, added the edit field, added the list, and when the user taps, the keypad comes up. It's like that. And depending on your use case, you might want to resize this area, or you might not. What you could do is, when the user selects an area here, you can make it so that the keypad disappears. Or you can do it so that the user can actually scroll through the items with the keypad still visible. It depends on what kind of interaction you like to do. And so this is how we go about actually making this. There are many ways of doing this, but I use the UI builder in this example. So using the UI builder tool, which you've just seen, we create a form. I've added just the indicator style to this form. I create a full screen scroll panel, full screen minus the indicator area. Nothing can go on top of the indicator area. And I'm adding a text edit field on top of the scroll panel. I'm adding a slidable list on top of the scroll panel. So everything goes on top of the scroll panel. There's some code that's required as well. The overlay keypad has 2 command buttons. Now, they look just like soft keys, except that they are part of the keypad, not the form. So that's why we're calling them in a different manner. We're calling them command buttons. So you can assign different functionality to these command buttons. And typically, you would assign things like cancel, back, clear, those kind of commands to the right one. And you would do things like search, save, something more a bit affirmative action type on the left command button. So in this example, I guess I would want to do something like search for the left soft key, left command button, and cancel or hide for the right the command button. And because I want to listen for text changes as the user enters text, I want to listen to the text event. I want to implement the interface for text event listener. There are 2 types of methods here. When the user has canceled this input, you can get this callback, but I'm interested in this one, on text value changed. So as soon as the user has entered any text, I'm in my implementation of this method, and I can do the search, create the list, crop the list, I can do those kind of things. The command button handling is done through the action event listener, and this is the same type that's used for buttons, soft keys. Most of those actions share this type of listener. So I can listen for the right, in this case, for the right button, the action ID that I've assigned for the right command button. And here I choose to close the keypad. So to this scroll panel, there's this method, close overlay window, which closes any keypad